It's Thursday night. Do you know where your favorite baseball team is? Well, if you're a Twins fan, you sure do. But it's time to dive into the mailbag and ask Brandon anything. So get strapped in and let's get Locked On Twins live.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello again, and welcome back to another edition of Locked On Twins Live. This time, I'm your host, Brandon Warne, and I've been watching the Twins for over 30 years and covering them in some form or fashion for about half that long. I want to thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And of course, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we are your team every day. Love to hear from you if you are an everydayer. So please feel free to be active in the comments or on a live show like this. Leave some questions. We'd love to answer whatever's bothering you on this, or not necessarily bothering you, but whatever's on your mind on this Thursday night. Again, you can find my written work on the Access Twins newsletter, but we'd love to hear from you one way or the other, whether it's Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever. Doesn't matter. On today's episode, it is Ask Brandon Anything, and we're going to talk about, we got a few questions submitted ahead of time, and if we get to a few more from the chat, that would absolutely be phenomenal. So if you're hanging out, want to ask a question, put it in the queue. It'll let me know that it's up, and I will answer it. Before we get to your questions, too, we'll talk about the Twins claiming infielder / utility man / outfielder Ryan Kreidler off waivers from the Pirates. So we'll talk about that, too. But before we get started, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. And again, if you're just joining us, it is Ask Brandon Anything. So leave your questions in the chat and in the back part of the first segment, as well as the rest of the show, we will answer those. And again, like I said, there are a few that floated in via Twitter and Blue Sky, but if you have questions, leave them in the chat or just let us know you're here visiting, because it's always good to hear from you. But Twins making a little bit of news during the championship series with the claiming of infielder, outfielder Ryan Kreidler from the Pittsburgh Pirates. If you have heard of him, it's most likely from his time with the Detroit Tigers. And the numbers, they're not good. A career OPS plus of, I think it was 11, like a 383 OPS in a little over 200 plate appearances. And so you might ask yourself, why? Why would the Twins want to give a 40-man spot to a guy like Kreidler? And for one thing, it's the offseason, and so nothing's guaranteed. He could very easily be designated for assignment, taken off the 40-man roster in short order. There is going to be a significant number of subtractions from the 40 here at the end of the World Series. You've got all the impending free agents. You've got outrights. They'll take some guys off the 40 who are candidates to maybe come back on a minor league deal, or if they clear waivers and are not eligible for free agency, just stay in the organization. So for now, it's just taking a chance on a youngish guy. Came out of UCLA in 2019, fourth-round pick of the Tigers. Career 236, 342, 401 hitter in the minors. And if you're not that excited about that, it's not that different than what he did in college at UCLA. Now, he went in the fourth round for a reason, and I want to explain to you that he is a very good, or at least has been a very good defender at shortstop. And so between that and this year, he exclusively played center field in the games that he appeared in for the Tigers in April, before they decided they weren't going to give him any more chances. He plays a really good shortstop. And in fact, I had found some quotes from, a couple of guys who are in the big leagues with the Tigers now and are coming off big seasons. Both Riley Green and Dylan Dingler both speak very highly of Kreidler as a teammate. They called him captain. He's apparently a very, very good leader. And a few of the guys, some of the other minor leaguers, because the stuff I watched was from when he played in Erie, which I believe is Double-A for the Tigers. They called him a great leader, one of the best defenders they've ever played with. I watched some highlights on him from college too. Pretty decent swing from the right side. Doesn't seem to have a ton of power. Does have some speed, but to me, at first I was thinking it was maybe like a Jonah Bride situation, right-handed hitter, maybe can give you a little something against lefties. But I think this is more along the lines of backup shortstop, backup center fielder, 26th man, and then, see what the bat does. The walks have been good. He's stolen, 78 bases in the minor leagues with 24 caught stealing. So pretty good in terms of efficiency, stealing bases. 6'3", 208. He's a pretty big guy. And he talks about that in a couple videos where, he kind of thinks or feels like he fits the prototype of the big shortstop, which has been, I think it was more popularized with like A-Rod and Nomar Garciaparra now 20, 25 years ago, but it has stayed in the mainstream or in the ethos that the big shortstops are just fine. But yeah, he only played center field in the big leagues this year. So that's interesting too, in that he's got that versatility, moves pretty well. Again, great leader, but defense. I know that he hasn't hit at all in the minors, and that's going to give some people, or in the majors rather, but in the minors, he's been okay. That's going to give some people pause. But if he can take good at bats, good plate appearances, he could maybe do not necessarily an Austin Martin impersonation, but that sort of value offensively plus shortstop. So there's potentially something here. It's not something I'm trying to talk myself into. He's going to start at shortstop or anything like that. But as far as insurance policies go, you could do quite a bit worse than Ryan Kreidler, who has been claimed from the Pirates. And so, yeah, we'll see. He may not last a week on the 40-man roster for all we know. So giving him, 7 minutes of discussion here is probably more than he's going to merit. But that's the start of what we hope. We'll see what happens of an active offseason. Hopefully a active and productive offseason. I got a couple comments in the chat. Thank you all so much for hanging out. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Thanks for visiting. First of all, Joe Not Mauer says, looking good, man. Thank you so much. Doing our best here on this side of things. Definitely appreciate you hanging out here, Joe Not Mauer. And then a question from Ty Dizzle 1001. Hey, Brandon, do you think Kaelen Culpepper will make his debut sometime this season? And would this make Brooks Lee our primary second baseman? Also a big fan of the pod. Well, first of all, thank you for being a big fan of the pod. We definitely appreciate that. I think you're looking at Culpepper debuting. I don't know that he's the kind of prospect who will jump from Double-A or minimal Triple-A time. So I'm sure that he will, open the season at St. Paul next season. But I don't know if he shows the polish, especially offensively. If he shows the polish that maybe we've seen him show, and the Twins are going to be in a position to let a young player play through some things at shortstop, I could see mid-season, maybe even as early as June, for Kaelen Culpepper coming up, making his big league debut and hopefully becoming a mainstay. Now, it is difficult to think about, if you move Brooks Lee off shortstop to make room for Culpepper, and then Culpepper, a lot of guys come up and they're toolsy, but not quite ready. We've seen that from Torrey Hunter in the past, Byron Buxton, that sort of thing. I don't know about moving Lee off short, but if he became the primary second baseman, I think that's a good fit for him. I think then you move Luke Keeschel around a little bit. I don't know. The tricky thing with Keeschel is his arm. We still don't know how that's going to come back. So second base, but maybe first base is in his future too. I think between Keeschel and Alan Roden, you could probably take care of first base internally. And so, I think Culpepper debuting at some point around midseason. A lot depends on how spring training goes. If he crushes spring training, they brought up Aaron Hicks in 2013 after he crushed it in spring training. He did not have a lot more experience than Culpepper had in the upper minors. So I think anything's possible, but he was so good this last year and was, let me see here. I gotta try to remember from my list. I had him as second for my Matt Tolbert Award, minor league hitter of the year. I had Gabriel Gonzalez first, which is also going to be a very, very interesting prospect to watch heading into his age 22 season. So yes, long story, even longer, Ty Dizzle. I think that Kaelen Culpepper will make his debut this upcoming season, and it would not shock me if it's on the earlier side of things, just because this team is going to need something to hang their hat on. And if they're going to go with the young guys, you may as well go and fully commit, especially with a guy that's played in college. And, you're not going to ruin him by getting him up here and maybe having him struggle a little bit. Let's take our first pause. We've got a bunch of questions in the queue. You guys have been absolutely great. So we'll get to them as quickly as possible. But first, let's take a quick break. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss, because right now new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now, I've seen put down 5, get 100, 150, 200, 250, but never, ever have I seen 300. And I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play, whether it's a same game parlay, live action, you name it, FanDuel has got it. Makes watching football even more exciting. You're already watching the action. Why not get a little action on the action? And whether you're a casual fan or if you're a stat freak like me, diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Well, hey, we're back. Second segment, Ask Brandon Anything. I appreciate you all hanging out here. One moment, please. Been dealing with a little bit of a sore throat, so we'll hopefully maintain the voice throughout the duration of the show. I've got some cough drops and some cherry juice, so we're plugging along here. Tremendous question so far. I thank you all for that so much. Let's dive into one more that came in during the first segment, but I really, really enjoyed this one. Joe Not Mauer getting back into it again with, what are your thoughts on the list of managerial candidates that Dan Hayes put out? Now, I have the story up here. Story that dropped here in the last, about a day or so ago. Nick Punto is the headliner, but also mentioned, let me just scroll down here to make sure I get everybody. Derek Shelton, James Rowson, Ramon Vasquez, and potentially Cubs bench coach Ryan Flaherty. Now, that is a list that, I don't know that I would say I'm necessarily surprised by anybody on it. We did not, in our earlier draft, have Ramon Vasquez, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think we had Ryan Flaherty, but I think Flaherty came up on the list of guys that I figured would get consideration from someone at some point. This list, though, nothing terribly surprising. I honestly think James Rowson is my favorite target. We have a Twins team that desperately needs to improve their hitting. He was their hitting coach when they were at their best offensively. As a manager, you would have another voice in those hitters' meetings that has been there, has done that, has led there. I don't know what that would mean for Matt Borgschulte necessarily. It would kind of stink to have him come back for 1 year and then get dumped again. But that's the nature of the business. And the Twins didn't hit this year. So if he were to get dumped, it would be, along the same lines of what got David Popkins dumped a year ago. And we've all seen how that's gone. Blue Jays going ham on the Mariners pitching in Game 3 And so I would like to have a hitting voice at the top or a player development voice. We've seen a lot of, and not that I don't think that Rocco could do that or was doing that, but they had, a lot of young guys come up and just couldn't get their traction in the major leagues. We saw Jose Miranda take a big step back. Now, granted, the water bottles at Target was probably a big part of that, but Edouard Julien took a step back. There were a lot of young guys that just did not take that next step like you would hope. And so between either some sort of hitting or some sort of player development mind, I think that's what I'm looking for. Rowson for me. But I would like to see, and I don't know if this is possible, is I want Hank Conger to stay in his role, which is assistant bench coach. Maybe you could hire one of these guys and get Derek Shelton as a bench coach. I like the idea. You already had Shelty as a bench coach on the Twins before he went to Pittsburgh. You know what he's capable of in that role. And I think it would be good to have a guy who's managed in the major leagues as the right-hand man if you hire someone who has not managed in the major leagues. And, this entire list, Shelton's the only one who has managed. And I don't, he's been beloved pretty much everywhere he's been, maybe outside of Pittsburgh. And that's just because if you fire a manager, chances are it's going to leave a sour taste in those fans' mouths. But the Twins loved him. As far as I know, the Blue Jays and Rays loved him. Excuse me. Sorry, the throat's going again here, trying to hang on here. But any of these guys I think would be good. I think you're seeing the typical, get a couple of guys that the team is familiar with. You got the utility infielders, you got the former catcher, so maybe there's something there. And I think the list will probably only get bigger. Dan said that the Twins have not reached out or at least gotten permission with Ryan Flaherty. But again, the Cubs season just ended in the division series, so it may just be a matter of time before they do that. So as far as that list, nothing terribly surprising. I didn't expect Vasquez or Flaherty to be on it necessarily, but this is also a very preliminary list. So it'll be something to monitor. Dan's coverage is phenomenal and it will continue to be phenomenal. And I have no other expectation but that he's going to be the one or one of the ones to follow as hopefully news breaks relatively soon, because, you want to make that move so you can start thinking about players to play under that manager and coaches to coach under that manager, who's staying, who's going, so that those guys who are not staying can get a jump on other jobs as well. Thank you so much for that question. One of our Locked On partners, Locked On A's, Polanco, doing pretty good. Looking back, were you upset when he initially left? It's a complicated situation with Polanco because I love the player, but I also acknowledge that, the Twins really wanted to give Edouard Julien a chance at second base. That clearly blew up in their face, but based on his talent and how he had played or projected, that made sense. Polanco, they were able to shift him with some value to get back Gabriel Gonzalez. The other pieces of the trade, Justin Topa's been meh. Darren Bowen has been meh. Anthony DeSclafani was non-existent and has since resurfaced as a middle reliever, I think, for the Diamondbacks. But in general, I look at the trade as I think it's still going to be generally positive because Gabriel Gonzalez had such a good bounce back season this year, especially at Wichita. But he held his own at AAA St. Paul too. I think it was like a 121, 122 weighted runs created plus as a 21-year-old. So he'll need a little more time at St. Paul, but I'm eager to see where he fits in the future, in the near future. And as far as Polanco, he was a free agent this last offseason. So a trade tree for me kind of ends in that window when the player had a chance to go someplace else of his own volition. So while I am wishing he had signed with the Twins this last offseason, I think you kind of have to view those two things as separate. So I hope that's not a cop-out, but thank you, Locked On A's, for hopping in, and having a discussion with us. And our friend Joe Notmauer, I think Alan Roden is the opening day starting left fielder. Yeah, not an unreasonable take. I think my vision, if if guys play to the level that I feel they're capable of, I think Roden probably hits leadoff, Keishel second, Buxton third. Hopefully Royce Lewis can get back to what he was doing. He could hit fourth or fifth. But I see my vision is Buxton in a more run-producing situation behind Roden, who has been a tremendous on-base guy in the minor leagues. Hasn't really shown up yet in the major leagues, but give it time. It's still early in his career. And not entirely, well, Kreidler too, only a couple hundred plate appearances into his career. He's not the best version of himself yet. And so I think taking a chance on a guy who's still a little bit new to the big leagues with Kreidler's a decent enough move. Again, really good shortstop, as we talked about in the first segment. But yeah, I think Roden in left, maybe Buxton in center, and Wallner in right, with the vision being Jenkins or Rodriguez in right, maybe the other one in left, Roden at first base, some mix and match. You need Wallner. I know Wallner's career numbers are good, but I understand the idea too that you'd like to see more from him. The career weighted runs created plus is good. He moves around fairly well for a guy his size, but I also feel like there were just too many stretches in 2025 where he was just a non-factor. And I think that's the difference between him being a guy with good statistics and a guy that you want in the lineup every single day batting fifth and, taking some of those plate appearances against left-handed pitchers. Because he was quite a bit better against lefties this last season too. So yeah, I think Roden in left field makes a lot of sense. Let's hope and assume that he heals and looks good, and we'll see. Trevor Larnach could be on the way out. I don't know what the future looks like for him. About a league average hitter this year. They had him face more lefties. It did not go all that well. So lots up in the air, but yeah, we'll see. Speaking of lefties, any fun facts? Mustache Steve wants to know. I got a fun fact for you. It's time to go to our second break. We're going to take a pause. When we come back, more questions from the chat. You all have been great. We'll grab those and let's see how long we can ride this wave, because you guys are doing a tremendous job dropping questions into the chat. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards, Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown or not, all that sort of stuff, and you're in the game. I love how quick it is too. Less than a minute and you have a lineup. That's faster than you brew your coffee every morning. And also they just added stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup, hoping that Jalen Hurts hits all of the unders this weekend against the Vikings. And it's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with just one click. If you want to do that, I want to have my own lineup. But if you have someone else that you want to emulate because it's the sincerest form of flattery, then that's what you want to do. And the new injury reboot feature, easy for me to say, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it doesn't count against you. And there is a special max discount promotion live on the board right now for the Golden State Warriors versus LA Lakers game on October 21st. So coming up here very soon. Steph Curry is discounted to only needing more than a half a point to win. Easiest bet in the game. Mix and match players from football, basketball, and baseball and build your dream lineup today. Download the Prize Picks app and use code LOCKDOWNMLB, and you'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKDOWNMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, Locked On Twins, rocking and rolling, and back for the third and final segment. If you've been hanging with us, we've answered, we've discussed Ryan Kreidler, the waiver claim in general. I'm perfectly fine with it. Maybe he'll hit a little bit, but he plays a good defensive shortstop, has some versatility. We have talked about all kinds of stuff. Alan Roden, hopefully playing left field for the Twins next season. We'll see how that goes. We've talked about the managerial list that Dan Hayes put out. James Rowson is on it and is probably my favorite candidate. I had a fair amount of interaction with him when he was here as the hitting coach, and it seems like everybody just loves him. He's a great communicator, great leader, just a great all-around dude. And so very, very hopeful that he gets his just due as an interview. Again, I would love to see him get hired as manager and Derek Shelton as bench coach, and then Hank Conger as assistant bench coach, which he was doing already this past season. So, we talked about Jorge Polanco too. So go back and check out the previous segments if you haven't yet. But while we're still hanging out here, fun one from Mustache Steve. Do you think Anthony Edwards will do a werewolf bar mitzvah video for Halloween this year? If you're a big 30 Rock fan, you'll understand that reference. I sure hope so, because that would be absolutely hysterical. If you don't know about werewolf bar mitzvah, look it up, watch that episode. Tremendous, maybe the best show of that comedy block when NBC was doing just an incredible comedy lineup on Thursday nights. So let's hope that an Anthony Edwards werewolf bar mitzvah video is in our future here, coming up in the next couple weeks. NBA season on tap, coming up here soon. Wolves in Portland to open it up, and it's going to be very exciting. Ty Dizzle, who had a very great question about Kaelen Culpepper to start off the show, wants to know, who do you think will take the biggest step forward next year? And actually, in the last episode, I did mention that I thought it would be Zebby Matthews. And I'm sticking with that. But there's a couple other guys, because if we're frankly honest about it, a lot of guys need to take steps forward next year. And it's kind of hard to pick just one. With Zebby, the peripherals are solid. He strikes people out, doesn't walk anybody. And, you worry about the home run rate, but I think it was like 1.4 this year. And, that's not going to make anybody excited. That's still a danger zone. 1.4 is about what the league average was in 2019. If that gives you some sort of context, you want to be more in that below 1.3 to really feel good about where you're at. And every pitcher's different. Joe Ryan was like 1.37 this year, but got really dinged up late, gave up like 10 home runs in his final 30 innings. So if you could get Zebby into that 1.25 homers per 9, which I believe you can, you got a really dang good pitcher on your hands there. And so it's not that I think it's a slam dunk that he's going to lower his home run rate, but I think it's reasonable to expect, and he does enough other things well. I was going to make a Chris Paddock comparison, but I don't know that Paddock ever struck guys out anywhere close to where Zebby's at, even right now, very, very early in his career. And Zebby had some really nice starts. He handled the Padres well in a couple starts down the stretch. He had a good start against the Tigers. Tigers were in the midst of their free fall, so I guess that's maybe not as impressive as would have otherwise seemed. But Zebby is my guy to take a step forward. On the bullpen side, I think Pearson Ole is a guy to watch. I find his repertoire endlessly fascinating. Lots of changeups, tinkers with a knuckleball. Who tinkers with a knuckleball other than, a guy like me on the back end of the bench on a, high school baseball team, just goofing off during warmups. I think that's hysterical. And I'm hopeful he can get to a point where he can throw it 10, 12, 15% of the time regularly and really use it in addition to his changeup. I mean, a changeup, knuckleball, fastball pitcher, there's some opportunities there. And if he can command it well enough just to not be a complete disaster, I think Pearson Ole is going to do some good things out of the bullpen next year. And certainly opportunity is there to be had. Mustache Steve wants to know what to expect out of Connor Prielipp. 30.5 innings in MLB for Connor Prielipp next season. Tricky question. And I'll tell you why. So he took a very nice step forward this year. He won their minor league pitcher of the year. He also won the greatly esteemed Locked On Twins minor league pitcher of the year, but nobody ever brought that up except us here at Locked On Twins. He took a step forward though in innings, over 80 innings after only throwing about 23 the year before. So not an unreasonable jump from 23 to 80. Probably puts him in the mix to jump again from 80 to, let's say, 120 next year. By the way, our friend Joe Notmauer says over. I like the optimism. For me, the reason it's tricky is because he may profile as a reliever, but the Twins are going to have no incentive to move him to reliever, even with the questionable bullpen situation that they have coming out of this year and going into next. Dialing back his innings is not going to be super productive, and shoehorning him into a bullpen role without first giving him the Louis Varland or Trevor May treatment, maybe a step above what they did with Griffin Jacks as far as, a year or so worth of starts. And it's different too, because his stuff is not like their stuff. Their stuff was fringy as a starter, but worked as a reliever. Prielipp's stuff should work as a starter, but he's more that like Rich Harden, can he stay healthy situation. And so if he throws 30.5 innings in the major leagues as a starter, I don't think that's unreasonable, because I think he can throw 120 next year. And I think if he throws 90 good innings as a starter at St. Paul, you'd be willing to give him those 30 in the bigs with the Twins. I'm going to take the over. The tricky thing, again, keep going back to that, is 30.5 innings. If he works as a reliever, that's a half season workload for a reliever like him. Then you really need things to go right, and you need the Twins to have decided he's a reliever. I still am taking the over, but I think they won't look at him as a reliever until 2027 at the very earliest. It's just so tricky, though, because how are they going to decide he's a reliever? Is he going to have to get hurt for that to happen? It's a lot of questions that I don't feel comfortable necessarily even going into, because, I don't want to throw that out into the ethos or the ether out there. So I'm hopeful it's over 30.5 innings. It'd be nice if he was their number 5 starter, month into the season. Maybe you trade Bailey Ober. Hopefully you don't trade Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez. I really still am anti that. So, I think over 30.5, but I'm hesitant to really understand how they'll do it, because I want to see it, but I also am like, are they going to start him and put him in the big leagues this year? Or are they going to want to get him from 80 to 120 and then get a look at him in 2027 when he's all the way ready to throw 150? There's a lot of layers to this. There's a lot of questions, and I'll be eager to see how it goes out. But I'm hopeful it's over, because that means things have gone well for Connor Prielipp, which is something I would like to see happen. We hope for these things for guys who are drafted as guys with injury risks, and we saw it with Lucas Giolito is one of the most obvious examples of it. The Nationals drafted him in the first round after or with Tommy John on the table. I think maybe Walker Buehler had that too. I can't remember. There was another pitcher who either had Tommy John, or Tommy John was like likely to happen, and the team still took a guy very, very early. Unless we get more questions, we're going to wrap it up with this one. Again, thank you all so much for hanging out. And if you do want to ask more questions, I'll hang until the questions dry out. You all, again, have been just absolutely phenomenal. Who are some prospects you are looking forward to seeing in the majors or minors next year? The obvious ones, Walker Jenkins, Kaelen Culpepper at the top of the list. But Emmanuel Rodriguez, to me, is an endlessly talented and intriguing prospect because of the on-base percentage. I hope he doesn't fall prey to the Aaron Hicks passivity over, like taking your walks when they're there, but don't get too focused on it. I don't want to see a passive approach at the expense of driving baseballs into the gaps and over the fence that are there to be hit. And, this past season, he battled injuries, had like a 420, something on base. On base and the slugging were about the same. I'm not trying to see that. I would like to see a higher slug just because, not that a 800 OPS with a 400 slug or on base percentage is objectionable, but I want to know that he's getting the most out of his bat in addition to his walks. But Kendry Rojas, another young guy who, like Gabriel Gonzalez, got to AAA, mixed results, but I think a lot of people lost sight of just a guy that age getting to AAA and what the value is in that and that experience. He should be better for it next year. Nothing's guaranteed, but it's going to be very, very important for him and Alan Roden to take steps forward next year to help people kind of still get over the loss of Louis Varland, who's been equal parts just awesome and a little bit scary for the Blue Jays this postseason. But Daeson Hill, would really love to see what he's capable of. He's rocketing up some lists. I saw Thomas Nestico. I think he's T something stats on Twitter. I'm going to call it Twitter. He has Daeson Hill in his top 100 prospects, which is exciting. This is a guy whose analysis I trust, between him and Aram Layton, and then the big guys too. I mean, Keith Law, Eric Long and Hagen from Fangraphs, some of my favorite guys too. But I like to see the guys who go a little off the radar and change it up a little bit. If you wanted me to go with a prospect, though, a little further off the beaten path, I mean, it's hard not to be excited about a 6'6" shortstop and someone with the BW initials like me, Brandon Winokur. It's going to be a long path for him, big shortstop, see where he ends up. But I'm eager to see where he ends up. You got Charlie Soto, who's also in that top 100 on Nestico's list, just sneaks in at like 90 something. A lot higher on him than MLB Pipeline is. They have him 15th in the Twin system. So a lot of young guys that I'm eager and excited to see. Quentin Young, Delman Young's nephew. Anytime you've got that big, big kid, shortstop, but we'll see how, what position he lands at. But big league pedigree between, Dimitri and Delman Young. And, I think it'll be fun to see what he's capable of. We do have some more questions coming in, so we'll just, we'll hang. I'll hang as long as you guys hang. Mustache Steve, does Brooks Lee reach arbitration as a Twin? His approach differs greatly from anticipated, and Kaelen Culpepper, and Merrick Houston are on his tail for shortstop. Keishel seems to have second base locked down for the near future. I think he does, mostly because even if he was going to be traded, he's going to have to show a little more to have value across the league. Excuse me. Sorry, again, losing my voice, battling something here, so I apologize if there's some goofy noises coming out of me. But I think they're going to want to see, at least a couple more years of what he's capable of. I'm starting to maybe get like Todd Walker vibes. And I've been watching, like I said, I've been watching a lot of old Twins games on YouTube while I've been working. And, I think maybe we didn't appreciate Todd Walker when he was here. LSU star, put up some numbers, wasn't a shortstop though. He's second base. He tried him at third base for a while, behind Knobloch and all that stuff. And then he hung around for a while. But I think he needs just a little bit more time before we have any sort of strong take on what he's capable of. He did take a bit of a step forward this year. He had a few more impactful at-bats. And keep in mind, too, though, he hit the ground running and then really tailed off in his rookie season. This year, it's kind of up and down. I'm really hesitant to put too much of a stamp on him yet. And I still believe in the talent. I still believe in the approach. He doesn't strike out, but I did make this note during the season. It feels like he struck out, like when he struck out, it was in big spots. Bases loaded, runners in scoring position, 2 outs. Emblematic of the Twins on the whole, where they just did not come through in those spots from Carlos Correa down to Jonah Bride. So I still believe in Brooksley. I still think Jose Miranda might have a chance to do something. So that tells you where I'm at as far as guys I still believe in. But as far as Brooksley goes, if you ask me again in a year, which again, huge cop-out, he's a year closer to Arb. Don't know if he'd have the service time to be Arb until after next year. But I do think he reaches arbitration as a Twin. I just don't know if it goes much further than that. It is an infield. It is an infield that is, even with guys who have failed, Jose Miranda, I hate to call these guys failures because they made the big leagues, but it's hard not to say that the luster is off of Jose Miranda, Edouard Julien, and some of these guys. So it's a crowded infield that's only going to get more crowded. Here's to hoping that Brooksley makes that decision difficult. I thought they'd have some difficult decisions this year. Turns out they really didn't. So we'll see. Steve follows up with, he makes too much bad contact. Yet, there's something to be said for that. That was a thing for me with Eddie Rosario was, yes, he can get to everything, but do you want him to? Kirby Puckett made a career out of that, and became a Hall of Famer because he was a bad ball hitter. Eddie Rosario could reach anything and everything until he couldn't, then had LASIK, and it was all over. But guys who can get to everything, maybe their gifts prevent them from really honing in that approach. And it's certainly possible that Eddie Rosario, who didn't strike out as much as he should for his approach, but it's because he could reach things and make bad outs, that maybe Lee is of that similar ilk. You're not going to mistake those two's plate approaches or anything like that. But, if Brooks Lee's grounded to second 4 times a night, is it that much different than striking out? No, not particularly. We do have at least one more here. Ty Dizzle, even though the Twins aren't in the playoffs, it's been fun watching all the former Twins playing in the spotlight, even though it's bittersweet. Yeah, no doubt about that. Joan Duran didn't get his just due as far as getting to pitch enough in big spots in the postseason. And that's the rub when you have you acquire relievers. They get you to the playoffs, and then it's anybody's guess. Dodgers have ridden their starters because their bullpen's kind of been stinky. So it's there's no one path in October, but there have been some Twins on the big stage, former Twins. Jorge Polanco, good. Louis Varland, good and bad. And the list has continually been whittled down. Harrison Bader got hurt. Now he's a free agent. I do think, and this is maybe not entirely related, but the trade deadline and watching these guys and stuff, I think it will age better than it felt at the time, if that makes sense, because, we were all just kind of shocked by trading off 40% of the roster. But then you see Brock Stewart got hurt, and who knows if he'll ever pitch again effectively. Shoulders are tricky. And Louis Varland is, he's a little bit of a joker. He's tremendous 80% of the time, and then he'll give up a big homer. And Griffin Jack's very similar. Joan Duran is awesome, but he's a closer. You need a closer on a bad team. Same deal with Louis Varland. You didn't need a closer on a bad team. Now, if you want to be good next year, and I certainly hope the Twins do, they are going to have to rebuild the bullpen on the fly. And so we'll see what happens there. I think you can do that reasonably inexpensively. There's some interesting free agent relievers this offseason. And funnily enough, a lot of them are former Twins or Twins adjacent. Caleb Thielbar, Danny Coulomb, Tyler Rogers. Tyler Rogers probably going to get paid just because of his peripherals, and that he doesn't need to throw gas to get the ball past guys. But I think Tyler Rogers in this bullpen could be really interesting because he gives you a different look. I like the idea of a bullpen that gives you a lot of different looks, whether it's a lefty and then a hard throwing righty and then a submarine righty and then a ground ball guy and then the guy that, pitches up in the zone like Jake Odorizzi style. I like having all different types. It takes a village to build a bullpen, and the Twins had that. And I really do believe if things come together, and I kind of feel like Bert Blyleven at the end of 1986, if they can get things together, they still have the talent to be a difference maker in this division. The White Sox aren't there yet. They're getting there, but they're not there yet. The Guardians are fine. The Tigers really looked mortal in the second half, and the Royals are decent. The Royals aren't great. None of these teams are great. The Tigers, who knows what's going to happen with Tarek Skubal? He's got 1 year left. He's going to get paid in arbitration. But beyond him, Casey Mize looked good. Reese Olson looks like he could be something if he can stay healthy. Jack Flaherty, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I don't see this Tigers team as impossible or impassable. Now, here's a fun one. Every time I think we're getting out of here, somebody else puts another question. Payton Eeles, can he make the majors? Little frustrating that he didn't this year due to injury. And then, when they were adding guys, he was not playing that well. I don't see why not. I don't know what the circumstance is going to look like. Carson McCusker made it, and that's an indie baller who hit everywhere he went except the big leagues, which is not that unreasonable. It happens. Some guys are quad A hitters, and maybe that's what he'll be. I'm not saying that's what he is, but it's very possible that's what he'll be. With Eeles, if they think he can play short in the big leagues, yes, he'll be in the big leagues. If they think he's a second base only, a Luke Hughes second base, third base utility type, they're really hard to shoehorn into the big leagues unless they have another carrying tool. And Eeles, he's solid. He's solid across the board. Little guy, but big heart. I think that I think he deserves a shot, but he didn't get it this year, and that was probably his best chance. So I'm thinking / hoping he makes it to the big leagues. I'm just not sure what that path looks like. Mustache Steve has a good one. The 2026 Twins are going to be Veal. Eeles should get a shot. 2016 Dozier was just a 2012 Willingham with a makeover. Yeah, that's a lot of words that I understand. I don't know if everybody else would, but Ann Veal is George Michael Bluth's girlfriend and Joe Bluth's girlfriend on Arrested Development, and played by May. I can't think of her last name, but anyway, they continually talk her up as Bland and her, and but yeah, just very plain. And I've been watching I watched the first game of the 96 Twins today, and boy, it started out so encouraging. Dave Holland's ripping the ball. Everybody was so excited for Paul Molitor, and Kirby Puckett's eye is bothering him, but maybe he'll be back in 2 weeks. And Rick Aguilera, his wrist is bothering him, but he should be back soon. He's going to be a starter. That team finished 78 and 84. It kind of feels like that's what the Ann Veal would be. Is fine, okay. Teams that win 78 games are so uninteresting because they aren't in contention. They aren't bad enough to be, way up high in the draft. I mean, unless you hit, luckily in the draft lottery, you're just kind of there. You just kind of exist. So yeah, if that's the case, I mean, Eeles should get a shot. The problem is, again, where? Super utility, yeah, sure. But is he better than Ryan Kreidler? Maybe. I don't know. Can he play second base? They got Keishel. Does he play short at all? I don't know. I would love to see Eeles get the chance. And again, if you asked me a year ago, will Carson McCusker make the big leagues? I would have said, man, I don't know how it will happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if it did. I'm in about the same boat with Eeles right now. So yeah, let's see here. Falvey Mayonnaise 9x9 challenge opening day. That's a good one to end it on, I think. If you don't know what a mayonnaise is, it's squirting mayonnaise in your mouth and then a hard-boiled egg. 9 of those in 9 innings. Whoo, boy. And then I assume 9 beers too. So I'd pay to see that, not just for Derek Falvey, but anyone else. Hey, this has been a whole heap of fun. If we can get this many questions every time, we could probably do one of these a week. And I had some backup questions. Didn't even need to use any of them. You know, you got like to be prepared in this game. But you guys were great. I can't say enough. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. For your second listen until the end of the World Series, we have Locked On MLB Game Night for you. Every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Hopefully not the Dodgers. And that's nothing against the Dodgers, but I want to see one of these other teams win. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube, like we're here right now, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you again so much for hanging out. This has been Locked On Twins. I'm your humble host, Brandon Warne, saying good evening, good night, and we'll see ya tomorrow night.